Welcome to Business Talk Sister Gawk. I'm Becca, and today's podcast episode is Turning Blight into Bright, the business of community revitalization. With me today, I have Jason Hale. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for having me, Rebecca.
Oh, I'm so excited. So tell me, what do you do?
Huh, that's a good question.
I hate
Um,
that question.
yeah. It's kind of funny because so I've been doing economic development and housing development for 14-ish years, and whenever I've been asked that question over that duration, I have to pause and think, how do I explain exactly what I do? So as you know, I started my own company, which launched at the beginning of this year, and North Shore Development Co. And what we do, if I had to try to simplify it, is we do pre-development work to try to get municipalities and private sector developers on the same page, uh, pursuing the same goal, and like helping them chart that path. So a lot of the time there's a discrepancy or gap, particularly in two areas. Funding, of course, is like the number one. There's a financial gap for a lot of projects today, most projects. And then number two, there's sort of a communication or understanding gap. There are communities across our region want XYZ things, stated goals is in their comp plans, their council supports it, but how you get there and how you work with the private side to navigate that process can be a little tricky, especially with the what I would call fast changing environment we're living in. So we try to help get things done.
Yeah. And so I'm going to just re-say that North Shore Development Co. Is that
Correct. Yep.
who you are now? Okay. Awesome. And so when you're talking about getting all these people together, essentially you're trying to do big project build outs, right?
Sometimes, a lot of the time. So we have some contracts with some private developers, and I'm helping them, for example, navigate the public process for a multifamily project in a few different communities. That's one example. So that's the larger project you're talking about, 75 to 150 unit apartment building. On the other side, I've helped municipalities map out single family developments and um, how you can try to make financial sense of doing a new subdivision, for example, and how they can leverage authorities and abilities by statute locally to set the table, so that the private sector can come build the houses they're looking for. So it can be everything from helping somebody look at like infill lots. I just had a meeting with a builder yesterday, and they're
Hmm.
looking to build more single family homes in the Duluth area. And we were just talking about some of the challenges in the market and how they could think about doing that, considering costs and interest rates, et cetera. So sort of all
Yeah.
over the map.
Yeah. So why do you do what you do? How did you get started in this?
Kind of, I don't want to say accidentally, but um, there are some people you probably relate to this, that had like they knew what they wanted to do. Like there are some people who were like, I'm going to be a vet or, pick the occupation. I never had that drive. And instead, I pursued things that I found interesting as they came up. So I started in banking, and then I moved to property assessment for the county, and then I moved to development on behalf of municipalities. And in my private life, uh, I have bought and sold. I just purchased our ninth house, but we have renovated about six houses. And so in my personal life, I had a real estate broker's license because I was doing real estate transactions for myself, and I helped a couple friends. And it's just sort of coalesced into this space of recognizing, especially in Northeast Minnesota, getting a better grasp on how local government here works and how that intersects with real estate and finance. And it's sort of created a niche. And I realized, probably about 18 months ago, hey, there's unfortunately a need for this type of work. And I say unfortunately because truly, if there wasn't a need, that means things would be running more efficiently, and
Right.
governments and private
Yeah.
builders could work together, figure it out. So that's kind
Hmm.
of the why. I find it. I just really find real estate and housing, especially, but economic development writ large, I just find it really interesting, and it can have such tremendous impact.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we're gonna kind of get into some questions around like how you do what you do.
Yeah.
When you first started this, what did you start like pitching? Like, did you just go to a developer and say, "Hey, like, here's my experience," or like, how did you get that experience and then build on it?
How did I get the experience of reaching out to people, or which experience you're referring to?
Like the aspect of working with municipalities, was that through like your time at the HRA and all of that there, or
Oh,
was it?
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like I said, I started in private sector and like doing mortgage lending and I did a financial advising for a short stint, like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and life insurance, that sort of thing. And
Okay.
then I went into the public sector and I worked for all of the entities, the county, the HRA, the EDA, the city, and from Duluth, which is, in our region, the biggest metro area, up to
Mm-hmm.
Grand Marais, Cook County, which is one of the smallest. So that's where I learned on there's this sort of this joke we have, like myself and my colleague who is now working with me, Teresa. Other duties is assigned is sort of the the thing at the end of every job description in government, and that, and
Okay.
especially in development and housing, it just covers like everything else. So uh, I have just made a practice of like if I don't know what that thing is, I need to figure it out, and if I can do it, I will, or I'll find the person who can. So largely it's just by virtue of trying and making mistakes and learning from them and trying again and having some successes and kind of the natural organic process, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I got there.
Yeah. So when you decided to start your own business, just doing this consulting, what did that look like for you?
Somewhat nerve-wracking. It's a weird time to do private real estate work, with rates the way they are, with costs the way they are, with the federal government, and a lot of uncertainties from tariffs to policy to HUD being reduced significantly. So it's a weird time for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I started the LLC I think in 2023, because I knew that at some point I wanted to try my own business. It had been a thought on mine for a while, a thought in my mind rather. So I kind of crunched the numbers, did the math, took a long time to think about it. Was very supported by my wife. She's like, you should just do it. Um, so that was really helpful. But she's also self-employed, so we're both going from, me having this sort of more stable government, benefits and income, et cetera, to both of us being like, all right, let's see if this works. Uh,
Okay.
but I'm super glad I did it. It's been really fun. It's been a challenge, but I made sure I'm a little more risk averse than maybe the average entrepreneur. And
Mm-hmm.
so before I left my role at Cook County, I wanted to make sure that I had some things lined up to be able to transition.
Okay. So, yeah, tell me a little bit about how do you decide to price yourself and like know who you were going after as your clients to try to get in front of people?
Well, I've been really, really fortunate. I haven't had to give my sort of elevator pitch, or I haven't had to market myself yet. Um, I had relationships that I built over, a decade with folks in the North Shore area, particularly, and folks in the housing space, and they, reached out with questions, and I said I could probably help with X, Y, or Z, and then with regard to the pricing, it was sort of honestly, it's like, well, what do I know other consultants that charge for certain things, and I think I can probably be at or below that a little bit, but it just depends on what the work is. Some contracts makes more sense to do it on a sort of retainer basis where there's a fixed amount, and some on the hour. It just totally depends on the nature of the work. So that
Yeah.
part is really just like, hey, I think this is fair for the time and the work, and they can agree or disagree, and then we go from there.
Yeah. So, when you're talking with, say, like a city or whatever, what do you recommend they
Yeah.
do to find developers to make them interested in coming to their area?
Well, so you attended that technical assistance informational session.
I sure did.
You
For
sure
those of
did.
you who don't know, that is a program that's being offered to our region, that cities and EDA groups can apply for. But
Yeah, exactly.
mhm.
Is the name implies, folks, it's super riveting. But I'm just kidding.
Technical assistance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's very technical, and we try to assist. But the whole point of that is like to directly answer your question is we think you don't go recruit developers until you're ready. So what
Hmm.
I've seen a lot, is a lot of communities in our region. are like hoping and trying to get the attention from builders, developers to come to their city and do a project, build an apartment building or new housing or a single family, whatever the objective is. But what often happens is, let's say you get the attention of said developer and the planning commission, the city council, the county board, whoever the decision making body is, like isn't supportive of what they would need to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
There's maybe the zoning doesn't actually accommodate the thing you're trying to get them to do. Maybe you don't have a site identified, or there aren't resources locally to help fill the funding gap. That then you've wasted their time, and it will probably be that much more difficult to get other folks to come to your community. So we're trying to make sure that before you bring them in, know what you're willing to do, able to do, set the table, so to speak. That's the objective. There are some folks we're already working with in this program that have projects that they're sort of starting or underway, and we're trying to help them navigate that current or existing project to get it to the finish line, so to speak. But yeah, it's a small world in the development community, and there's only so many folks who do that work in this region. So we try to make sure that you don't engage them too soon if you don't know what you can do.
So basically, a bad taste in your mouth spreads quickly to everybody else, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, kind of. It's
Mm-hmm.
like so development is so time sensitive and it goes in
Mm-hmm.
cycles.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a couple projects that I've worked on. There's one in Duluth that's being under construction right now, and I started talking with the owner developer about that site in 2017 or 18, and
Mm-hmm.
it's 2025, right? So it's been over 7 years since we first started talking about that multifamily deal. And again, it's like, I don't know, 60%, 50% complete construction downtown. The point is, some of these things just take so long.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and if you want to, I mean, the need for housing in most places was yesterday.
Right.
So I just don't want to see communities not prepared
Mm-hmm.
to actually get the deal done that they want. A good example is I'm working on a project in Two Harbors, with the city, the county, and the HRA, the county HRA, and what was really the reason we decided to work with them is because they made it clear they were serious about helping to get housing done. They were clear, hey, what we've been doing hasn't worked. So continuing to do this, our current posture or position and how we've handled these options or opportunities in the past just hasn't produced anything. So we need to change it.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of my role has been helping them understand what the project needs. Like here's open book, here's the pro forma, here's the math, this is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And to make this work, here's our ask, and then helping them navigate that process. My point is, there are lots of communities who don't know how to get there. But if they have the will and they're motivated to get something built and done, then I have helped them figure out how to get to that goal. Whether
Mm-hmm.
it's coming up with making sure there's policies, doing public notices, trying to like educate about certain tools that they have,
Mm-hmm.
applying for grants, whatever the thing is. But the number one important, in my mind, the number one important thing to do before you get any development or developer interested is understanding that like folks are rowing in the same direction. They really want to make something happen, and it's just a question of how you get there.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And that's actually like when you're just speaking to that, like that's exactly why I wanted you to be a guest on my podcast because I think it's important for business owners to realize that if if you want to get something done in your town or like if you're a Main Street business and you're seeing a need to fill occupancies of like vacant property or dilapidated things in order to get them revitalized or even just like maybe it's like build new and take down what's there. Like you have to get a lot of people around the table and typically like the business community is really pushing hard on these things to see it happen because they know it's going to
Hmm.
create positive impact to their businesses. Would you say that that is accurate, that the business community is pretty regularly involved?
Oh, I think the business community has a tremendous impact. So, a case in point example is housing has been a challenge for a decade.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we could go into a long diatribe of how we got here, but the point is, we're here, and it really wasn't, in my mind, it really wasn't until the business community started saying, "Hey, we're having difficulty hiring and retaining people because there isn't housing available. Like
Hmm.
this is a business problem, which then makes it a community problem, which then makes it a municipal or city problem."
Hmm.
So we started seeing more and more businesses, chambers, community groups coming to the table, going to council meetings, writing letters of support, et cetera. I mean, I had that experience in Grand Marais several times where, the business community supported our grant applications, supported us bringing new requests to the city that they have never done, but they
Hmm.
recognize like, hey, I know this is like new and scary or whatever. Not really scary. Some people might think so. Um, but the business community had to come forward and say, this is something seriously that's impacting our ability to not just grow, but like maintain.
Hmm.
If this trajectory continues, we have some really hard choices to make. So yeah, you're 100% right. The business community can have a huge impact. Well, I will say on the flip side of that one that I don't know, it's maybe not problems. One of the realities is business community can say, "Hey, we need more housing um, to recruit talent." So city get on that, and then the city can say, "Cool, with what money?" And like, we understand it's a problem, but why are we responsible for fixing it? So
Right,
it's kind of
right.
like
Yep.
I don't know if you've seen that Spider-Man meme where there's like three different Spider-Men pointing at each other. It's that sort of thing where everybody's pointing at the other person, like, "Hey, you should get on this," and the city's like, "Hey, you should put money in or build your own housing." And they're like, "Hey, we can't afford." Like, it's so
Yeah.
that's why it's all the more important to get people like, "Hey, what is our goal? What are creative ways to get there? How do we make this work for everybody?" And get some sort of consensus around that investment.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of the next question with that I had. How do you see like what are the typical issues that these groups face and how do you generate ideas to get around those issues
Which groups are you referring to?
when they all get together and decide to get on the same page?
Well, I haven't been a part of like this sort of meeting of the minds where these businesses have a convening and say we're all going to get on the same page. Um, I think it's more of an organic. I mean, some of the sure some chamber meetings happen or like visitor bureaus with depending on the community. Like it's just Chisholm, for example, it's a small community,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of the people that are involved with the various things they wear many hats. For example, they run a business and they're also on council or they're also on planning commission or some other board. um, so it's really that circle of folks who are invested in the community and who talk with each other and recognize the problem. They start to sort of like circle around this idea of we need to create a little more, maybe like a little more energy that's not so siloed, a little more of a uniform front to try to make some changes. Because
Mm-hmm.
I've seen this so many times. There's like I don't know how many meetings I've been to or conferences in the past where the point of the meeting or conference seems to be to convince the audience that we have a housing problem. Like, yeah, we got it. There's a housing problem. So, like, how do we directly attack that? That that I think is part of the challenge is finding somebody to spearhead that effort. So like to directly try to answer your question, that what's really important is to find some entity, some group, some person who champions. It can be a specific project. It can be sort of reform at the policy level, but some group who's committed to trying to figure out the problem or contribute to a solution. Not just say we need to like this is a problem that should be fixed, but like what can we actively do to change course?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does that
Well,
answer your question?
yeah, I think so. And
Okay.
I would say how do you like advise people to manage naysayers in that process?
Yeah. I like. Are you referring to NIMBY?
I'm sorry.
Oh, this is fun. You haven't heard of this. NIMBY, not in my backyard. It is a common term in planning and the development.
Got it.
It's
Okay.
essentially, yeah, whenever you go to a council meeting and I've been in so many of these meetings where a project is being proposed or discussed, and the neighbors for that project come out and say, we don't want that. And then the council's like, right, but we all talked about it and the comp plan says, and you all say we need more housing. And the NIMBYs say, right, we just don't want it there. Why don't you go put it on the other street 5 blocks away or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so this is a phenomenon that happens literally everywhere. And it is difficult, especially in smaller communities,
Mm-hmm.
because people are your neighbors. Like the person on council, maybe is their cousin lives in that block or that neighborhood where this project's being proposed, and their cousin's going to be real mad at them if they approve that
Mm-hmm.
thing because they don't want the
Mm-hmm.
change. So I think what's really important, to try to basically give those decision makers political cover, is there are two things. One, make sure that the community has some sort of guiding documentation, whether it's a comp plan or some policy. There's something where the counselors, ultimate counselors, commissioners, whoever the decision makers are, can point to it and say, look, we asked the community, we went and did stakeholder meetings, we got input, and everybody agrees we need this. So they can say, we're not just making this up. This is something we need for various reasons, and we've all agreed on that. And then secondarily, try to pack the court with positive people. So when you go, what ends up happening sort of inevitably is people who don't care or are supportive don't show up for those meetings because they're like, great, I'm going to stay home and do my thing and live my life. Uh, but the people who do care and who are not supportive definitely show up. And so the sense is you have like the community is against this thing. Well, it might be like 10 people because that's, their neighborhood. And maybe like 1,000 other people are generally supportive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm not saying get 1,000 people into the council chambers, but I am saying to the extent you can get the chambers, the advocates for that sort of thing, have them come to those public meetings where things are being reviewed and have them speak in favor of it and the reasons why. Because otherwise the conversation's super one-sided and it's just negative. And developers, we understand like that's going to happen almost always.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to show up with concerns. They're going to say we don't want that. They're going to, try to convince council or whomever to not approve it.
Mm-hmm.
But it certainly doesn't make it. It doesn't feel great when you're like, hey, we're working really hard to bring this thing that you guys say you want, and all we hear is people complaining about it.
Mm-hmm. It is
So
actually incredible how much social media actually also influences that. And it's almost like, I guess, in my experience in other communities, it's like you have to see three or four people that like don't care what other people think of them or how many
yep,
names they're called until they get it
yep,
done. Because they're like, whatever, I'm not going for re-election. I'm doing this because we need it or whatever. And
totally,
it's like, whoa, like that's what you need. You need people who are not afraid of public criticism to
a
like
100%.
do something. Yeah.
A
Hmm.
100%. And then unfortunately, you kind of hit on it back. The incentive structure is misaligned
Hmm.
because, if you tick off a bunch of people, they're afraid that it's going to, if your ambition is to get reelected, a lot of these councils or commissions are volunteer, but like most of them are volunteer positions. So they're like, yeah, if I don't get reelected, maybe it's not the end of the world. I can spend more time at home or whatever.
Hmm.
Uh, but still, if people want to be in that service role and leadership role, there's a inborn risk of damaging your odds by approving something that, at least on the face, people are upset about.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so I can tell a story later about social media, but I
Oh,
don't
we'll
I don't
get to
have it.
that.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I don't have it for that reason because everything that was like when I started really doing this work for the public, I was like, wow, I don't. This is not helpful. I have
Hmm.
to focus on the goal, and it's a really weird philosophical position to be in because you're sort of saying we have to. It's sort of a utilitarianist approach where you have to ignore the the pain of the few to try to maximize the success of the many. But it's easier, conceptually it makes sense. When you're doing it, it's like this is tricky, if that makes any sense at all.
No, absolutely. It does. And what do you think are local resources that people could leverage to make sure that they are like, and it doesn't necessarily have to be specific to our region, but like, what are things that you see successful for people to leverage in their communities to make a project like this happen?
Usually there's a local champion, not always, but usually. And again, it depends on the community. But let's say Chisholm, there's some folks in Chisholm who really care. Let's just say you're downtown.
Mm-hmm.
There are folks who really care about the vibrancy of downtown, making it a place where business is thriving, where people feel safe and comfortable, and they want to linger and spend money and enjoy. It could be a business owner downtown, it could be a nonprofit, something like that. So I think one of the challenges, like, and you could probably relate to this as a business owner yourself, um, but this is definitely true in municipal space. There just isn't the capacity or local bandwidth to try to move the needle, so to speak, on some of these issues. Like, for example, let's say you've got, I don't remember, but I'm assuming this is the case in Chisholm. I drove through downtown a couple weeks ago, and I have noticed some murals and some beautification efforts and things like people will care enough to be doing
Mm-hmm.
that, which is a great sign. But my guess is there's some empty buildings and storefronts.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do an inventory, but I'm just going to throw that out as a possibility, a probability.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. You can recognize that, and the business district can be like, hey, that doesn't help anybody. And then the question is like, okay, so what do you do about it?
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's where the leadership, I think, is really important. And again, the smaller the community, there's fewer resources. The city doesn't have it. You're not bursting at the seams with cash to buy and fix up old buildings. But there can be that's where people hate this term. I don't have another word for it. Public-private partnership can come into play.
Mm-hmm.
So you have advocacy on the private sides for the city to be involved with trying to rehabilitate certain buildings or help beautification efforts, to help things more pedestrian, make them more pedestrian friendly, whatever the objective is. And the private side works with the public to try to bring resources to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so a lot of the real advances are made because there's somebody or some people locally who want to help see change happen in the city. Whether or not they're able to write a blank check, the city is like wants to support that effort because they think it's in the best interest of the community. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give you an example. Have you ever heard of Lincoln Park in Duluth?
Mm-hmm.
It's a neighborhood in Duluth. It's now, most known for the craft district, it's called.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where they've got multiple breweries and cideries and small business shops and apartments. So that was one of my first quote assignments when I was with the city years ago, when there were a couple of businesses who had bought places and established themselves there. It was right as Bent Paddle was locating in that. That's a brewery locating in that neighborhood.
Okay.
And I was the liaison for that neighborhood from the city side, doing economic development, trying to bring resources to help them, it really reinvest in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And my point is that was led by, at least initially, 2 to 3 businesses who were really committed to making that space successful. That, call it, 3 block radius or whatever. And so I
Mm-hmm.
worked with them and a bunch of other small businesses over the years, created a grant program from the city to help them buy and renovate buildings. But most of it was like us coming alongside them and trying to be supportive and remove barriers and get creative with zoning, for example, those kinds of things. I was a public arts manager for the city at one point, the Public Arts Commission. So trying to get support beautification efforts with murals and looking at street signs, etc. So the point is that was led by the private, assisted and supported by the public.
Mm. Yeah. No, that's awesome. Well, where can people find you?
In Duluth, um,
Okay. What about online? Like, how do
I
people
mean that'll be
contact you?
difficult. Like I said, I don't have social media really. I have LinkedIn. That's probably the best place to find me. I have an Instagram account somewhere.
But
I'm not
don't
sure how
use
to log
that
into
because
it, but
you're not checking it, right?
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. I wouldn't. Yeah, it'll be like 3 months before I respond if I see anything.
Okay.
Yeah, LinkedIn is the place that I have stuff, and
And
our
you have a
website.
website? Yeah. What's your website?
Yeah, it's northshoredevelopmentco.com.
Okay. Awesome. Well, we're going to transition to the gawk portion of this episode. And I kind of want to hear about this social media thing you were talking about, if that's
Oh
okay.
yeah. Okay. So when I was working up in Cook County, which for the uninitiated is like basically Canada, but it's the northeasternmost county in Minnesota along the Canadian border, along Lake Superior. And I was, I was the first director of the HRA there,
Mm-hmm.
really sort of like starting a new business.
Mm-hmm.
What policies, all of the things, like how do we do this? Um, so my point is, it was my first time working in a community that size. Grand Marie's
Hmm.
got 1,300-ish people,
Yeah. Hmm.
and the county has 5,600. So it's the I think it's the least dense populated county in the state. So there's like way more trees than moose, maybe not moose, but definitely more trees than people.
Hmm. Hmm.
And they get, I don't know, 1 million tourists a year go through Grand
I think
Marais.
it's
Um,
1.3. Yeah. It's
yeah,
a
it's pretty
lot.
impressive considering, right? Because there's like 1,300 people to serve. Yeah, it's pretty crazy when you think about the math. But anyway, when one of the first projects I was doing there, multifamily deal that is now built,
Hmm.
um, but I found out through the newspaper. They reached out to me and said, "Hey, I just want to let you know the I think the editor, great guy. It's like I just want to let you know I heard people were talking about basically how you're in league with these developers and you're taking a cut off the top of these projects or something like that." And I was like,
Oh.
"What?" Yeah, right. I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Oh, I guess there were some people in at church of all places, um, talking like the over coffee, gossiping over about this thing, creating these stories." And I was kind of blown away, because I'm really particular about making sure there's no conflict of interest, making sure that I'm transparent with anything,
Hmm.
if there are
Hmm.
any. So I was like, wait, what am I doing? And so I heard that I was doing very shady shenanigan things, and it was being like talked about on social media, which I didn't have, thank God. But I mean, at first, frankly, I was super disheartened, because I was
Hmm.
relatively new in that role, and I hadn't even met any of these people, I don't think. But he wanted to let me know, give me an FYI, so that I could respond if I wanted to, and he encouraged me to respond with an article in the paper
Hmm. Hmm.
to sort of cut off, the gossip rumor mill or whatever. And so I did, which again was uncomfortable, and I didn't know how to feel about it. But then, like 6 months later, he wrote me with another new rumor that was spraying around, and I actually didn't remember what that one was. Something terrible, of course, that I was doing that I didn't know about. Uh,
Apparently, I'm
that,
doing this. I had no idea.
yeah, I was like,
Should really have a
where am I
conversation
making all
with
this extra money?
myself.
This is great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I told the developers that. I'm like,
Yeah.
apparently you guys are paying me on the side. They're like, we are. I said, yeah. How much are you paying me? They said, I don't know. So
Yeah.
we were kind of
Yeah.
joking about it.
Hmm.
But it was a lesson for me. One, I
Hmm.
got thicker skin because of it, because I really struggled with it. Because it was such a
It's a personal
unwarranted and
attack.
surprising. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. It was
On your
so ad
character as a
hominem.
person. Yeah. It's like,
Exactly.
what the heck? Like,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
no, I
like
totally get
I
it.
don't even know who the attackers were, right? So I was just like, hey, when he asked me again, do you want to respond to this? I said, no. If they want to talk about any of these things, my door is open and I'm happy to answer any questions they have. Like if they have accusations or they want to gossip about stuff, come do it to my face. But I'm not going to entertain like responding to the rumor mill in the paper. I think it's just not worth my time. But it confirmed for me, I guess the moral of the story is people change is hard. This is and my job literally is to make change. That's what I would try to do.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Change that communities need and want, but it doesn't make it any easier. And so I recognize that like this is a tough thing for people who are used to things being a certain way. And I also learned like, oh, people are can be angry and it has nothing to do with me as a person. Like they don't even know me. I don't think I talked to them ever.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
accepting that people, a one way of lashing out is in the anonymity and comfort of the online space, where you can say things without having to look somebody in the eye. And as long as, and I've learned this has been a really valuable lesson for me, as long as I believe what I'm doing and I can explain what I'm doing, and I know that I'm being ethical, let people do what they're going to do, because you just can't worry about that. You got to do what's right and do your best work.
Yeah, no, that is such great advice for anyone who wants to do something impactful in their community because it's so true. And I've seen that happen to so many people. And it's just like if you see someone else that's going through that, like that editor or whatever, it's so valuable to be able to call that person and just say, I see what you're doing. I know why you're doing it. And I just want to encourage you that like there are people that
Totally.
support you because Like, even if you're too afraid to be that person, you can still be a supporter and a person that says, no, I'm going to set the record straight. Hmm.
That's really good. That's a really good point, Becca. I think that's a really valuable role for somebody to play. If you see somebody in your community getting attacked or just being lambasted or gossiped about or whatever, like even if it's not you, just to give them moral support and
Hmm.
say like, hey, I really think what you're doing is great. Or if you hear it, say like correcting the record. If you hear somebody's trying to tell you that stuff, be like, I don't think that's true.
Hmm.
That can go a long way. Because people get, if they get away with it and it makes them feel whatever, powerful, or they have some sort of impact, negatively. I don't know what the motivation is necessarily, but people who don't know they're supported can feel pretty lonely.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I had a lot of, I was really, really blessed with a lot of positive feedback from that community. Most of it was positive, but yeah, I think you make a really good point.
Hmm. Well, thank you for joining me today. This has been a
Absolutely.
fantastic conversation. I really appreciated it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, and if you've enjoyed this episode, you should give it a review on wherever you are listening, and I will see you next time.